Direct News TV. Stab wounds to Sudbury murder victim's neck were fatal blows, pathologist testifies. Warning: this story describes the autopsy of a murder victim and contains many details some people will find upsetting. The forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy on Sudbury murder victim Renee Sweeney testified Thursday that a series of 4 wounds to her neck proved to be the fatal blows. Dr. Kelly Uren was testifying at the trial of Robert Stephen Wright, who is charged with second-degree murder in Sweeney's January 27, 1998, death. In response to a question from Crown Prosecutor Rob Parsons, Uren said the autopsy began at 9:47 a.m. on January 28, a day after the murder. It was conducted in North Bay because at the time, there was no one qualified to do it in Sudbury. The exterior of Sweeney's remains was examined first. That examination provides an overall impression of the general health of the person and any external injuries that may be present, he said. Uren said he noted a total of 27 wounds, including to the abdomen, neck, upper chest and hands. He said there were 5 cuts in the t-shirt Sweeney wore the day she was killed. He described most of the wounds as serious but not life-threatening by themselves. For example, there was a stab wound that pierced 8.5 inches into her abdomen. In and of itself, it was not life-threatening, Uren said, but added that it would bleed a lot. There's, also, a slash or cut on the thumb, with a deeper one right across the palm. There were also a series of stab wounds to her chest, about 5, that were not very deep. None of the wounds penetrated the chest cavity, he said. 2 more wounds were found on the left side of the neck, Uren said, one just above the hairline, the other below the earlobe. There were significant wounds to the right cheek and another large wound at the base of the right side of the neck. This wound is somewhat more significant, Uren testified. It appeared to be from a series of 4 blows and resulted in the carotid artery being partially severed. The extent of those injuries, and the multiple cuts, leads it to being a more significant injury, he said. This is the injury leading to death. Uren explained there are 2 carotid arteries, one on each side of the neck. They carry a considerable amount of blood to the brain, he said. The carotid artery was partially transected. If the artery had been completely severed, Uren said there was a better chance of stopping the bleeding because the body would respond to try and close the artery. But that's not what happens when the artery is partially cut. It can bleed more than a completely transected artery, Uren said. Other wounds cut into the jugular vein and Sweeney's trachea. Combined, he said the wounds would have led to massive blood loss in a very quick time period. He estimated there would be maybe a minute or 2 of voluntary conscious movement by the victim before shock and blood loss set in. Take it with a grain of salt, he added, of the time estimate, because there could be several variables. But in response to a question from Parsons, Uren said it's hard to picture a scenario in which the victim is conscious for more than 4 or 5 minutes. I would be very surprised if someone could physically resist after 5 minutes with a wound like this, he said. In 2 minutes, she could conceivably have lost more than a liter of blood. That's 10% of her blood. 5 minutes of active struggle? I doubt it. Sweeney likely wouldn't have a pulse within 4 or 5 minutes, he added. I suspect probably less, Uren said. A pulse requires working bodily fluid. Uren said he couldn't offer many specifics about the blade used in the killing. He said hilt marks can sometimes be seen when a full blade enters the body and the top of the handle leaves a mark. Unsure about the knife, but the clothes Sweeney wore likely would have prevented hilt marks from being visible. It was a relatively stout blade, he said, adding it was roughly 2 centimeters wide. The deepest wound was 8.5 inches. In response to a question from defense attorney Michael Lacey, Uren explained that a severed artery doesn't spray in a way often shown in movies and TV. When an artery is cut, it's not a spray that will cover everything, he said. It's more of a surge or a pulse of blood that would rapidly diminish as blood pressure drops. Urine also said that a muscle in Sweeney's neck was cut, the muscle that allows people to turn their heads to the right. So she could no longer turn to the right? Lacey asked. It would be difficult but not impossible, Urine replied, adding it would be almost impossible. He had testified earlier that he was the one that clipped Sweeney's fingernails to be preserved in bags as evidence. But Lacey pointed out that former forensics officer Leo Thibault testified Wednesday that he had clipped the fingernails, not Urine. Would that be a complete shock to you? Lacey asked. No, Urine responded. I can't say I remember actually doing the clipping. I remember holding the hands. Lacey suggested it was a matter of believing he had a strong memory of something that happened a long time ago, then realizing it was a false memory when prompted with what actually happened. Absolutely, Urine said. The trial ended for the day after Urine's testimony and will resume Monday morning. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.